Hello and welcome to today's episode of The Spotlight. I'm your host, Allison Weiss, and I am thrilled to recognize today's very special guest, Tori Nook. Tori is a principal and founder of Anchor Retail, an industry leader that specializes in national retail and investment real estate solutions, commercial brokerage services, and third-party commercial property management. With 25 years of experience representing prominent national retailers, restaurants, landlords, and developers, Tori has expert market knowledge in the tenant representation approval process, coordinating site selection, strategic planning, LOI negotiation, and site packaging. She has nationwide relationships with restaurants, retail tenants, shopping center landlords, and developers, and her real estate career has been distinguished by her long-term exclusive relationships and high production of multi-state tenant representation, shopping center leasing, and land sales. Tori has closed close to $1 billion in deals throughout her 25-year real estate career, and her experience not only enhances the services Anchor Retail provides to their clients, but also helps to develop and nurture long-term relationships. She exclusively represents national and regional retailers and restaurants such as Top Shelf and Dollar General, Academy Sports, AutoZone, Signet Jewelers, PetSmart, Wahlburgers, Bath & Body Works, Urban Air, Skechers, Sweet Green, and Land's End, in addition to a few franchisees of Panera Bread and O'Charlie's restaurants. Tori is a proud graduate of John Carroll University, Boller School of Business with her BSBA in marketing. And in 2025, Tori was voted by CREI Summit as a top woman of influence and the number 48 LinkedIn influencer, as well as an honoree of Globe Street's Women of Influence. She was also recognized as part of Crane's Cleveland Business Top 40 Under 40 in 2017 and their Source launch in 2018, and nominated as a notable leader in commercial real estate in Northeastern Ohio in 2023. In 2021, Tori was awarded the Mother of the Bread Award by Panera Bread for securing the largest number of sites nationally for them over the years. And in 2024, she was named the #1 tenant rep broker in Columbus, Ohio by Tradewire Columbus. Tori is a licensed real estate broker in the state of Ohio with offices in Cleveland since 2016 and also recently in Columbus as of 2023. Tori's company, Anchor Retail, has just recently become a member of the Realty Resources Network for Northern Ohio in 2023, which she is on the membership board of. She is also a member of the International Council of Shopping Centers, and outside of work, serves on the board of Providence House, a crisis nursery in Cleveland, Ohio, since 2018. Tori is the consummate professional. She is an entrepreneur, a mother, a wife, and is really real in this conversation about what her career journey has entailed, different tips that she has for success. And I'm so grateful that she spent time with us today on the Spotlight. So let's listen in. Hello and welcome to today's episode of The Spotlight, a Women Speak CRE podcast. I'm your host, Allison Weiss, and I am just thrilled to have my friend and fellow commercial real estate entrepreneur, Tori Nook, join us on today's podcast. Welcome, Tori.
Thank you, Allison. Privileged to be on
Awesome.
here and be with you.
Yeah,
We have great
well,
conversations.
I know we have the best conversations and we've had some on your platform. And I'm so
Mhm,
excited to introduce all of our listeners to you and your background. And I
mhm.
always love to start with the entry point. How did you find yourself in the amazing world of commercial real estate?
It's kind of a long story. Like I'm going on year 26 in December.
Yeah.
But I started off in real estate going to John Carroll University in Cleveland,
Mhm.
Ohio. It's a small Jesuit school, but very well known for their school, Boulder School of Business. And from there, it was one of those colleges where if you're in the business school and you can't get a job, like you're not trying, because they had really great internship programs, which
Yeah.
I'm a huge advocate of internship programs, whether you're in business or not in business, because you got
Mhm.
to see, do you want to even do this for a living or not? Because I
Yeah,
saw a lot of kids change majors or career
for
directions
sure.
by realizing I don't want to be a teacher or
Yeah.
whatever. And so I started interning through, they had a class called World of Work. It was like 1 credit. That's where you learn how to dress, how to write your resume, how to speak. It
Interesting.
was probably the best class a college could offer. And it was like 1 credit to fill my semester. I needed that credit. It was the best class I took the whole time I was there. And we learned like real life skills that got me to like where I'm at today. And so I got an internship at Realty One, which at the time
Mhm.
was the largest residential firm in Cleveland. They were bought out
Mhm.
by Howard Hanna, which is obviously, home brokerage company. But from there, it was great. I worked like 15 hours a week. I was able to make my schedule. I worked for this gal. She was 27, and her mom was a manager of the Pepper Pike, Ohio office, which was the highest producing office in all of like Northeast Ohio. And
Mhm.
so I worked with like a lot of seeing like a lot of high powered people, like men, very few of them, but a lot of women and in the real estate industry, who's who coming to Cleveland, like from buying houses to sports stars,
Mhm.
all that fun stuff. And I was like, this is great. I'm like, I'm not just in the office. Like it's kind of like a little bit on the road, a little bit in the
Mhm.
office. I like the flexibility. I thought it was great, but I did not like residential. So I wound
Mhm.
up switching after a year. I met a guy in my marketing class. Another reason why networking is really what's going to get you to where you are. Like I used to be so
Mhm.
nuts about like my grades and how well I did in school and et cetera. And at the end of the day, it didn't even matter because I was hired from job to job to job. Nobody ever looked at my resume. No one cared that I had like almost straight A's, like
Mhm.
a 3.8. They didn't care. Okay. It's who you know. And this guy I
Mhm.
met, and I'm still friends with him. It's so crazy. Like our sons go to school together. It's weird how like you travel like in soul groups, I think. And
Mhm.
when he heard I was in commercial real estate, he's like, "Oh, I have a friend who's an office broker. You should go intern for him this summer." And I was like, great idea. So I like roll over to this office boutique and start working there. And that's really where I learned commercial. Like I learned how to do letters of intents. Like I learned how
Mhm.
to stay organized. I learned how to find the office sites, like what they were looking for. I did everything other than negotiate the deals, pretty much
Mhm.
like what an associate would do. And from that, I learned a lot. I met who all the office brokers are, who's who in office world. But I actually did not care for office. I'm like, this is way too dry. There were great fees, there were big fees, and they made a lot of money
Mhm.
off the options too. But I was like, this isn't really for me. And luckily, I think God listens to you and your thoughts.
Mhm.
And I
Mhm.
had this call. I had to call this one guy on a piece of dirt that he had, a broker. And he was with a really large, kind of like similar to me now, like a large retail, well known boutique that only did retail in Cleveland called the Samuel Shaw Company. Sam's now retired. His son Drew's still in the business down in Florida with CB. And I wound up interning for them because the guy, Gary, he's also retired now, but he called when I talked to him. He's like, "Oh, are you an intern?" And I said, "Oh, yeah, and this is what I do." And he's like, "We want an intern here." He's like, "I'll hire you." So it was
Mhm.
great. And I was getting paid at all these internships a lot, like where I had friends doing stuff for free.
Yeah.
And I still got to make my own hours. And they knew I had to work a minimum of 15. I was normally working 20 is what I could fit into like my school schedule. And I loved it because that was like the late 90s when retail
Mhm.
really
Yes.
exploded. Like it was all mall world, right? In the 80s, like when I grew
Yeah.
up. And in the 90s, it's mall world and like a couple strip centers here and there. But the
Mhm.
like the 90s, late mid to late 90s, especially like here in Cleveland, is when, and just in the state of Ohio in general, is when all the big developers, like Developers Diversified, Stark Enterprises, Casto, like these developers were buying
Mhm.
hundreds of acres at every freeway intersection, wherever they could, to build a Walmart, to build a Target,
Mhm.
where the power centers are coming on the ground. And that's also when like Glimpshire started doing outparcel buildings where it was like, oh my God,
Mhm.
like, whoa, you're not selling to a restaurant, you're going to be leasing small shop space. So I came into this business when all that stuff was happening. And Samuel Shaw, not only do they represent a lot of these tenants, but Gary, who I specifically work for, he was the dirt guy going and tying up all these pieces of dirt and doing these assemblages for these developers all over Ohio. So I learned Cleveland to Cincinnati because of him. And back then it was harder. Like he needed an intern like
Mhm.
me because I had to go to the courthouse sometimes
Yeah.
because if it wasn't Cuyahoga County, it was called MetroScan. Like
Mhm.
bigger counties, like in Cleveland, go on Cuyahoga County's web
Mhm.
MetroScan to find out who the owner is. But then I had to figure out, write them letters. I mean, good
Mhm.
luck with figuring out phone numbers and all that. It was really archaic and it was extremely
Yeah.
time consuming. It's not what people have to deal with now. So
Mhm.
that
That's
was how I,
amazing.
yeah. And then again, like from there, I was there at least, I think, a year and a half. And when I was a senior, it was October, my senior year, another guy I was friends with, he was already out of school. So another Jonathan. So everyone named Jonathan in my life, I've had major luck with, like
Uh-huh.
personally and professionally and financially. So, anyways, this Jonathan number two comes along and he is working with a guy named Bobby Melcher, who's still a very big retail broker in Chicago with Metro. But Bobby used to work here and he worked with Samuel Shaw. And they wound up leaving and going to a different company, and they were doing all the CVS work for a large developer
Mhm.
here called Zaramba. And Jonathan's like, "You should come with us." He wound up having one of the brokers he worked for call me, and I left. So,
Mhm.
I figured I'll try something different. And they didn't hire me as an intern. They said, "Look, we want someone full time. So either you're going to come on full time or not. We need an associate and we'll give you a draw against commission." And so I left and I did that. And it worked out for me because during college, my mom was a teacher, my grandma was a
Mhm.
school teacher, and my mom was always like, just get school over with and get going, right?
Mhm.
And take summer classes, like your hardest classes, take them in the summer. So I was ahead. I only had 3 classes left
Oh,
per
amazing.
semester. So I had 3 and
Yeah.
3 because I wanted to graduate with my friends and with my class. So it
Mhm.
worked out. I was able to work full time with not too much of a problem. It was a little tight. I had a lot more freedom after and not so stressed like after I graduated, obviously. But those 8 months, like that's where I wound up accumulating all the big clients, like clients like I even work with till this day, like
Wow.
AutoZone, Sally Beauty Supply. I worked with Dollar Tree. They were a client of mine for 22 years until I wound up working with Dollar General when they started launching like Pop Shelf and all that.
Mhm.
And those are just to start like with those three, but there's also were landlords from that day that I
Mhm.
started with too. So I was able to get my career launched as an associate, had my draw paid off within 9 months of starting.
Wow. As
Yeah.
highly unusual. And the thing that I find so interesting about
Hmm.
it is a couple different things. One, that you were able to break in and you were able to learn enough hands on to go, okay, I like this, but here's the thing I don't like. Like, first, it was, I want to learn this industry. It's very interesting. I'm
Hmm.
not just doing one thing all day long. And so you saw residential and you thought, okay, maybe not residential, maybe commercial. And
Hmm.
then you got into the office world and you
Hmm.
tried that on, and there were things about it that you liked, but then you had
Yeah.
this exposure and opportunity in retail. And
Hmm.
all along the way, your word of mouth, the relationships that you had
Right.
built really opened the doors for you and got
Huge.
you 2+ years of
Hmm.
experience before getting
Hmm.
out of school that most people, might get an internship. It's probably unpaid. It might be a few
Yeah.
months.
Hmm.
What do you think, like, was behind all of that? Was it your work ethic, your drive? Was it the right time, right place? Was it a number of different factors that led to that kind of early success and
Yeah.
fast on ramp into the business?
I think it's a multiple things. I think the biggest I think where people actually cut themselves back is they're not friendly.
Mm.
They're not
Hmm.
humbled.
Yes.
No one wants, we've all had them. I've worked with them. I've had them work for me. They're not here anymore. But when they know it all, it's like you don't
Yes.
know it all and you never will. I don't care if you're like 80 years old, like you're learning
Yeah.
constantly. Okay.
You and I
And
don't know it all, not even
we
close.
no, and
Yeah.
we keep learning every single day. So that's where I think the
Mhm.
vulnerability comes in. It's just like even tipping your foot into social media. You don't have to
Mhm.
know everything. You just have to get there
You just have to
and
start.
just start. And
Yeah.
so I think for me, it was like, yeah, I want to know about real estate. My uncle was in real estate. That's why I
Mhm.
got into real estate. He was a big broker down in Florida, and my mom's brother. And my mom was like, look, you're going to have flexibility. Don't be a teacher like me, even though it is your next best bet as a woman with the weekends off and,
Yeah.
summers off because you're going to have kids. Because I always knew I wanted to get
Mhm.
married and have kids.
A
That was like number
question.
one, right?
Yeah.
And so she's like, why don't you do what your uncle does? It's flexible. You're
Mhm.
1099. I never even knew what that meant at the time. And she was like, I think that would be better for you. And you're good at sales and people like you. And I think
Mhm.
that's where it got me is that I always had a lot of friends, always friendly with people in school. I'm
Mhm.
approachable. So you start talking. And I think I learned that. I don't think I know. I learned that from my dad's side of the family because My dad is like, I come from a big Italian family with
Uh-huh.
him, and they always were in big business. Like they owned a lot of real estate,
Mhm.
commercial real estate company. Everyone worked there, even my grandma, his mom. And I just saw how she talked to people. People
Mhm.
loved her. Like she ran the show there and she ran the money too and everything. And she was like,
Amazing.
no bullshit. But she
Yeah.
also, like, no one would take advantage of her, but people respected her because she was
Mhm.
very kind and talked. And I
Mhm.
learned how to talk from them, seeing how they
Mhm.
talked. Like my dad would take us, we went to New York or Miami or went out of town. Like I met people from all different cultures and also heard their stories from people who were like when a lot of people were Jewish, had to flee
Mhm.
Iran. Like he had a lot of those
Yeah.
clients down in Miami.
Mhm.
I heard everyone's stories. And because he worked with them, he sold to them. And I loved people, I think, from growing up around people. And I think I had that knack. And going back to your question, I think A, I was approachable, B, people
Mhm.
could see I was passionate about what I wanted to do. And
Mhm.
number two, at three, is I work my ass off. And I
Mhm.
think the thing is, look, I'm not Mensa level smart. Okay. I'm
Mhm.
above average intelligence, obviously.
Yeah.
But I think, like, even in real estate, you just have to be, and like my husband, we talk about this too, because he owns a different type of company, but obviously, as salespeople, like in sales, you don't even need a college degree. Like, nobody
Yeah.
cares. Like,
Yeah.
you need to be able to talk to people and sell your product, and you have to be trustworthy too,
Yes. Mhm.
and then you're going to do really well. And you got to hustle. Like your level
Mhm.
of aggression, and meaning not bad aggression. Like we all know in real
Mhm.
estate, there are people who will try to run
Yes.
you down, right?
Yes.
And
Yes.
that's not the aggression I'm talking about. I'm talking about being organized, following up.
Mhm.
What can I
Mhm.
do? How are you going to be a
Mhm.
problem solver for this person? I have had people, I was shocked, so shocked when I first started my career doing deals, right? When I'm 21 at the time. And I remember my first client, this guy, Carrie Decken. I did a ton of car wash deals. He owned a big chain here in Northeast Ohio,
Mhm.
and wonderful man. And I will never forget. He was like, Tori's like, I would never work with someone as young as you ever, but you're so persistent. And he's like, you
Mhm.
return every call and you even call me back quickly. And if you don't have
Yeah.
an answer, you don't lie to me. You actually
Yeah.
tell me you don't know, but you're going to do X, Y, and Z to figure
Yeah.
out what that answer is or what the on that site or what, because we did a lot of either purchasing existing car washes or we bought dirt.
Mhm.
And I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, oh my God, my parents just spent $100,000 to send me to John Carroll for 4 years. And this guy's amazed, like an ex UPX executive who's
Yeah.
retired, now went into this business owning dozens and dozens of car washes, thinks it's amazing. I call him back. But that's how I think the thing is overall, and I see it even now. And it's
Mhm.
funny, even being a mom, like you could say if you're just even a
Yeah.
stay-at-home mom, like I'm not, but
Mhm.
even if you were, like I see it even with my own kids. There are moms like that don't even call me back about play dates. And then I'll ask other moms, I'm like, is it me? Do they not like me or something? Like, oh no, they're like, they never call back. I'm like, okay, well, like that's like limiting your kid's social life, right? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, it just like being like that and being a flake and not getting your act together to call someone back, I think is ridiculous. And that's like
Yeah.
rule number one in business, freaking call people back. And I
Yeah.
remember I would read all the trade magazines
Mhm.
like Shopping Center Business and RE Journals,
Mhm.
all their stuff, or Chain Store Age. And I remember reading Shopping Center Business. They had an executive from Simon they interviewed, and the number one thing he said when he trains his leasing agents is he tells them you got to call people back in 24 hours or email them
Mhm.
back. And then I read another article that Walmart does the same thing with all their employees.
Yeah.
So it's just, I think that, and I also think like when you work hard, and I tell that to people who are new here, when you
Mhm.
work hard, it's like God sees it, right? He knows
Yes.
you want it.
Yes.
He knows you're
Mhm.
trying. Doors will open up to you couldn't beg for, right?
Yes.
They will just open. And I think that's literally what happened for me. And also the guys I worked for,
Mhm.
um, they saw that I got stuff done. So
Mhm.
they gave me more stuff to do,
Yeah.
and the women in the office that I worked with,
Yeah.
because they're like, oh, of course they're weary of me and they should be if you're new.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
then it started adding and then I started getting my own stuff. And then it was just, I was off to the races very young.
I love that. I
Mhm.
feel like that drive and that persistence is so important. And you would think that it would be one of those things that is just a given, right? That we all try to call people back, send emails
Yeah.
back, and we try to do it quickly.
Yeah.
But I do find that the doing the everyday things consistently well is
Yeah.
very surprising to people. And
Mhm.
remembering to follow up and follow through
Yeah.
especially as you grow in more experience and seniority in your career. But it's a great way to make a first impression, to show people how much you care about them and how much their outreach means to you, is just simply pick up the phone and call them
Pick
back.
up the phone. Yeah. I mean, don't be
Yeah.
I think the thing is in general, I think a lot of people are so disrespectful to other people, just period.
Yeah.
And so when that's what makes you stand out. So if you're
Mhm.
respectful towards other people, if they're like almost shocked because they know you're not going to be, I guess, like in business, not everyone's your friend. Like
Sure.
you're there as a commodity. Like you're there to make them money.
Hmm.
They got to roll out stores. They got to buy a
Hmm.
building that's within comps or lower, right? Like you're offering them a service, but I think they're so shocked when you actually show that you're a good person. And to
Yeah.
me, I just think instinctually, like I just saw how my parents treated people and
Yes.
like generationally their
Yes.
level of success.
Hmm.
And I grew up privileged, and
Hmm.
it's not like we had private jets, but we were white collar. I had
Hmm.
everything, like my college paid for, my cars, jewelry, clothes, the schools, all that stuff. And,
Hmm.
I think a lot of people like to bash like silver spoon kids, but that's
Hmm.
not true. I've learned this even owning my own business. Like
Hmm.
there could be kids that it doesn't matter what socioeconomic background they come
Yeah.
from. It's like, how are they born? And instinctually, what is their level of wanting to do the right thing? What is their level of
Yeah.
drive? Like, you can't teach it to someone,
Yeah.
right? You either want it or you don't want it in
Yeah.
life. You either want to be successful or you don't. And to each his own. If you just want to
Yeah.
sit and live in like a tent, that's fine. Not making fun of you. Like, if you want to live in a yurt in Mongolia or something, that's fine. But
Yeah. That's a very good point, though, is the drive and, how connected you are to that drive. And
Mhm,
some of us, I think, grow up, and I grew up in a different situation than you did. And
mhm,
I think for me, that motivated me in a similar way to your situation, right? You saw and admired what your parents and grandparents had built and created, and you
right.
understood the level of humility and the level of
Mhm,
connection and the level of drive and enthusiasm that took. And so for you to have same or similar things, you knew the effort that was required.
yeah.
And I think some people grow up on the flip side of that and become similarly motivated, that they
Mhm,
don't want to be in this situation, or they
right.
want more for themselves.
You have to
And
want
or
it.
yeah, you have to want it, that desire, I think. And
Mhm,
even too, I know you're a very introspective person, and I know that you're also a woman of
mhm,
faith, as am I.
right.
I think also this ability to look within about
Mhm,
what do you want, and to know what you want, and
right.
to go forward, and not know that you can control all the things to the outcome of
Yeah,
what you want. But I
right.
do believe you that if God sees you working and
Mhm,
striving in a direction, that the road rises to meet you and you have more
sure does.
opportunities and all of that. So I love
That's
that. It's
100%. And
Yeah.
you're dead on. You either want it or not. It's just like even like people who have
Yeah.
addictions, like the number one
Mm.
thing they'll tell you, it's not rehab that helped me. I wanted it. I wanted to
Yeah.
stop. It's just like, do you want to do X in life? And you
Yeah.
again don't know the outcome, but you got to do what makes you happy, and you got to just do it and do it
Yes.
consistently on a daily basis. And
Yeah.
I didn't grow up, I obviously grew up with like just okay, the basic Catholic,
Hmm.
you go get your first communion, whatever. We weren't like consistent churchgoers. My parents were far from high holy rollies, but what they did instill is, I feel like what should be instilled in everybody is,
Hmm.
they didn't say the word karma, but that's what,
Hmm.
that would
Hmm.
be the term, is like you got to treat people how you want to be treated.
Hmm.
Because if you don't, it'll come back to you. And they also were big on charity and giving.
Yeah.
And you don't want to be greedy. You don't want to be stingy. You don't want
Hmm.
to, because the money for them, they're like, if you work hard, you do the right thing, it comes,
Yes.
you know?
Yes.
You don't need to
Agreed.
like lie, cheat, and steal to get where you're at. And,
No.
I also saw from them too is like there was no blood involved, but there were lots of sweat and tears. Like
Hmm.
I understood what it took for us to, and I think anyone could say this who has a parent who either owns their own business,
Hmm.
or you
Yeah.
don't realize what it takes and how hard and how many hours you're working. Like my dad, my family, they're working 7 days a week, like
Hmm.
sometimes Sundays off, obviously for dinner and stuff. But it just, there's a lot that goes into a small business, a mid-sized business, and big businesses.
Absolutely. I feel like that's
Hmm.
such a great transition because if
Hmm.
we fast forward in your story a little
Yeah.
bit, eventually you take this entrepreneurial leap. You've seen
Hmm.
it in your family, you know it's
Hmm.
possible,
Right.
and you choose it and you decide this is what I'm going to do moving forward. Tell me a little bit about that and whatever you want to share. Tell us how you became an entrepreneur and take us through that
Sure.
pivot in your career.
I think just being a broker, you are an entrepreneur, even if you
Mm.
are working for someone, right? Because you are a
Yes,
1099, you're
100%.
working off
Hmm.
commission, you do eat what you kill. So I'm starting off as being an entrepreneur at 21 years old. And then obviously rolling, it was 2016. So, it's 16 years later. I actually never chose to start my own company, to be
Hmm.
clear. This was not
Hmm.
on the goal list. This was not something that was ever planned. I
Hmm.
got fired from where I was working. And I was like, my husband's been telling me for 10 years to go on my own. And I have all these clients. And if I went to any competitor, there'd be conflicts because the amount of clients I was working with.
Hmm.
And so I was like, I can't do that, even though everyone came and gave me offers, and some were very
Hmm.
good actually. And I'm very grateful and appreciative of it too. I wound up calling a developer friend of mine, and they had a brokerage company too down in Cincinnati. And I wound up
Hmm.
putting my license there, and I went and got my broker's license. So I wound up, luckily in the state of Ohio, thank God I had my business degree because you have to
Hmm.
have a 4-year business degree.
Oh,
And
wow.
yeah, you have to have your BSBA. And
Mm.
so I luckily had it. I luckily was able to study for this test. I hadn't studied like for this test like in 20 years. I pretty much just locked myself up for 3 days and studied my ass off and wound up passing by
Mhm.
September. So I was fired the end of June, got my license the beginning of September, and
Mhm.
then it took me and my partner at the time, Charlie Townsend. He owned Anchor and Associates, which was a chain links firm down in Cincinnati. It took us until November 15th to be official. It took a while to get the name approved, to get everything
Mhm.
approved for the state. And luckily he had good connections because it was tough. It
Mhm.
was no easy feat to get this done. It's not like you're like, I want to start a business. It's a
It
lot.
takes time. It
A
takes
lot of
time.
red tape behind it too.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I had at the time I had 3 kids under 5. My oldest is
Mhm.
starting kindergarten. My summer was blown. Like
Mhm.
I was fighting with an ex-employer. It was very ridiculous. I had my
Mhm.
attorney involved, and I was lucky that my assistant came with me, or I don't know why I would have been pretty much screwed if she didn't,
Mhm.
because she and I pretty much just ran the show. If it wasn't for my husband, it would have also been hard because he owns a large company. So me and my assistant went to his offices and worked there, and I obviously just had to get keep things going. And at that
Yeah.
time, I was making to at least 60 deals a year. I was a really super high producer, and I had clients every month. I'm flying on their private jets to go look at sites.
Mhm.
I'm on site tours. It was like nonstop. And again, my kids at home. And luckily, it was very manageable working full time with a full time nanny with 3 young kids. But when I had to start my business at the same time, like my mom had to come up from Florida and
Mhm.
take over when the nanny left because I literally wasn't getting, I pretty much barely saw them except on weekends because I had to get that
Wow.
business organized. And even though Charlie was my partner, it didn't matter. Like I still had to get a website. I had to get the accounting. I had to get the fine. I had to get, we were starting a new company up here, and it was
Yeah.
so much work and the paperwork and everything to get organized. It was insane.
I really appreciate you sharing that. I
Hmm.
know I have a similar story. I
Hmm.
did know that I wanted to start my company. I did not know the timing of all of that. And I think sometimes when things are meant to happen, they happen not at the best times, at
Right.
some of the quote unquote worst times that they could
Right.
possibly happen. But I also think it shows you how strong you are. And I think
Hmm.
it also reinforces just all of this personal brand equity that you had
Right.
built in the marketplace and how much
Hmm.
respect you had, and these clients
Yeah.
that were lining up to work with you and the volume of deals that you were doing is tremendous. I think I just want to pause for a second. 60 deals a year
Hmm.
is no small feat.
For a retail
Not
broker.
No, for a retail broker, this is the volume that several brokers could do. And
Mhm.
it's also in a time where retail was in a different place. There were new concepts expanding all the time. There was a lot of
Yep.
growth and things like that. And you really needed to do everything that you could to
Mhm.
capture that. Talk to me
Oh, yeah.
about once you felt like you could breathe again. How long did it take for you to feel like you could breathe again? And it goes away. I know this too as a business owner, is sometimes you feel like you have a few months where, oh, I can breathe again, and then it goes away. So tell me a little bit about
Mhm.
the entrepreneurial journey. Tell us about what you have tried to build and where your firm is today, because I know it's
Oh,
pretty
yeah,
significant.
for sure. So it'll be 9 years, November 15th for Sneaker Retail. And like I said, when I first started, it was me leaving with my assistant and running a whole show. Like it was a lot. But,
Yeah.
again, I think you got to be organized and you got to have a personal executive assistant that's organized too, or you're just not going to really get there. Right.
Hmm.
And at the time, I wound up having nobody. And then when Charlie and I became official November 15th, two of the guys at my former firm came right over and we got started with them. I wound up hiring a marketing director
Hmm.
a month like October 1st, so a month and a half before we went live. And it actually was great because he was
Hmm.
able to get all the brochures done, all everything like about your company.
Yeah.
We got the web designer. There was a lot we had to do, like a
Yeah.
ton. And
Hmm.
so it was nice that we had that time to really get it organized, to get it launched. And thank God, like all of my clients except one, which was just a listing anyways, but like all
Hmm.
my big tenant rep clients, like nobody cared whatsoever that
No.
I'll admit, like I did lose one account. I didn't get one that I
Hmm.
interviewed for because they're like, who are you with? And I'm like, kind of like here and yeah, just whatever. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And it really wasn't a big deal, thank God. And actually that one listing wound up coming back to me anyways. So I did take
Hmm.
everything with me at the end of the day. So that was November 2016. And we picked up some really big listings. We did a lot of big tenant rep just with the three of us. Then a
Hmm.
fourth came on, and Matt Wilson here, who's a
Hmm.
longtime veteran, and he came with Meyer. He came with a lot of big tenant rep accounts, a lot of big box. That's what he specialized in. And I would say we were just kind of like blowing and going with four of us
Hmm.
for the first, I guess probably the first year. I haven't actually really thought about this. And when everyone else
Hmm.
kind of came on board, um, and then we're always usually averaging about, I'd say 10 people. So we at some
Hmm.
point we got up to 9 or 10. I know at some points we've had 11 because some associates we've had.
Sure.
I had two people I used to work for come
Hmm.
over during
Nice.
COVID. One gal I used to work with years ago, again at the former firm, she wound up leaving that firm and then
Hmm.
went to work somewhere else. And then she came and brought another guy with her. So it just
Love
was like
it.
it kept
Yeah.
stacking and stacking. And then we had an investment broker here and he wound up moving out of state, down
Hmm.
south. And it and then he decided not to be a broker anymore. So it stunk because we really want to fill that investment sale broker void. And I wound up, that's how I started my Columbus office because I called some
Hmm.
developer friends of mine and I asked them, like, which investment brokers do you work with that you really like? And one of them in
Hmm.
particular was like, oh, you met him before a couple of years ago at ICSC at my dinner. You sat
Hmm.
next to him. And I'm like, oh, that's right, Arthur.
Hmm.
And so he was with M&M for 9 years. It took me a year and a half to get him to come
Hmm.
over, but
Hmm.
he did. And that's how we started Columbus. And it's great because like we have so many referrals from clients of ours that
Hmm.
need either buyer's representation or sale. So it worked out great. And then from there, I had again like a leasing agent friend of mine telling me that a friend of hers wanted to be a broker who was been a marketing assistant for 10 years
Hmm.
and at a retail brokerage firm like mine,
Hmm.
and they didn't want her to transition into being a broker. They wanted her to stay, which I get it. It's hard,
Yes.
And
Yes.
so she wound up coming over with us. And so that it's just always like who knows who knows who knows who,
Hmm.
right? Kind of
And
thing.
I know one of the things that you have done that is
Hmm.
unique, and I think also that you have benefited from in your own business, is some of that flexibility that you
Hmm.
need at different points in your life as a woman to be
Hmm.
able to maintain both your career and your family life. So tell me a little bit about how you've been able to blend the two and also how you've created an environment where people can stay long term because the
Hmm.
role and their responsibilities and their work can kind of shift and flex based on the stage of life that they're in.
I will like preface this. When I was young, until you really get married, when you get married, I don't think things change that much.
Okay.
It's when you have kids that really rocked me in my world into like, you can't be a
Yep.
perfectionist anymore.
Yeah.
And there's way more you got to organize at this point, right?
Sure.
So I
Mm-hmm.
learned because of my own experience. I have a relationship with my husband and I have children to take care of. But I realized I
Mm-hmm.
still was getting it all done and I didn't miss a beat. I actually did better. I did better because what I
Wow.
realized is that I think I was like screwing around before I had kids at the office, talking too much and not really focusing, lasering in on,
Mm-hmm.
my work. Because like when you have
Mm-hmm.
kids, you're like, you only have a nanny they're not going to work for you 14 hours a day. So you better get your work
Yeah.
done within 8 to
Yeah.
10. So, and so because I knew that well, part of my business too is I learned a
Mm-hmm.
lot as I went. And I wish I knew
Mm-hmm.
you back then, but we can't go to the past. And unfortunately, the assistant I had that carried me, she made it very clear, even when I hired her, when I was with my old
Mm-hmm.
firm, she did not want to work in a big office because that's where she came from. She only wanted to be a one-on-one personal assistant. Worked
Mm-hmm.
out great then. Well, guess what?
Mm-hmm.
I'm starting a company. She's like, this didn't work
Different.
out, right?
Yeah.
So it did not work out. She did not want to be in a multi office
Person
type
office. Okay.
person office. She wanted to be a one-on-one executive assistant. So that we parted ways there. And then the marketing director I hired, I had to let go. And I wound up having a clean sweep within a matter of couple months.
Mm-hmm.
And I did wind up using a headhunter to hire who I have now. And then
Mm-hmm.
the reason I even hired who I hired was because these are women who, well, in one case, it was not a headhunter. It was somebody who worked for a
Mm-hmm.
competitor of mine. And the broker
Mm.
who worked there I was friends with was like, yeah, she has no flexibility here. It's really hard for her.
Mhm.
He asked me for probably 2 years if I'd hire her. And I'm like, I don't
Wow.
need her. And then
Yeah.
finally the time came where I'm like, hey, I'm like, is she still looking? Because I need someone like her here. And what wound up happening in each case, like so with the one of my employees, they had actually a bad nanny situation. And her husband
Oh
was like, if
no.
you want to work, we're not gonna have a nanny. Okay. So
Yikes.
you're gonna take her
Yikes.
to school and
Yeah.
pick her up and you could work when I come home. And she was like,
Mhm.
can I do that? And I'm like, sure, I don't care as long as you're getting your work done. And it's worked out just fantastic.
Amazing.
Everything's been great. Like
Yeah.
it's hard to find a job where someone would be flexible with you to do
Mhm.
that, right? It's
Mhm.
just they don't exist. And that's why like even my headhunter was like, this is why she's having such a tough time finding a
Yeah.
job. Like she's willing to work full time, but she's gonna be conventional for you from 7:30 to 3:30, then 5:30 to 7:30 or whatever to get that
Mhm.
8 hours in. And I was like, I don't care. I'm like, I knew who she used to work for. And
Mhm.
I personally, a developer, and I trust him. I know he would never hire somebody who was not good. And he
Yeah.
was like, look, this is just how I run my business. And she did work here. She left on maternity leave. Not going to give flex time to anyone here, but I would hire her in a second. I'm like, okay. And it worked out great.
Yeah.
And, the other girl I hired too, some people will even take pay cuts because
Mhm.
not that I did, but she was like, I just need the flexibility. Her mom was super sick
Mhm.
with cancer. She wasn't
Oh.
able, and I was always like, look, if you're getting
Mhm.
your work done, like I know what you're doing. I got the computer. I know if you're working or online or not online. Like as long as you get
Mhm.
your work done, I don't care. And I feel like people like that, I just have worked in companies with such terrible
Mhm.
help at times that had terrible
Mhm.
help. And I've seen good
Mhm.
help. And I'm just like,
Yeah.
all I want is good help. And I don't care what time they're working. Just I want
Yeah.
only good help.
Yeah.
I
I think
outsource a
too.
lot too. And I've had to get rid of
Yeah.
people I've outsourced too. But
Yeah.
I think you got to find who you jive with. I think it's best to always do that rule of thumb of three, like interview three people. And I think
Mhm.
that you always should hire people. And I feel like this too, even with like my own childcare and nannies that I've had and
Mhm.
sitters, like down to even landscapers, like find out somebody is like has the expectations you have and ask them who they use.
Yes.
Because you're typically we're not going to be disappointed.
Yeah. I agree about that expectation part. And I think too, if
Hmm.
you know where someone has worked previously and you've got some understanding of their environment and the
Hmm.
work that they have been doing, and you can create that extra little flexibility. The thing I
Hmm.
want to point out is that you were doing this before COVID, right? You were
Yeah.
adding flexibility to your business before
Hmm.
it was like a cool thing or deemed necessary in any way, shape, or form. I'm wondering, do you think that it helped you to work differently and have an easier transition during COVID? Do you think because you
Oh
had
my
more
God,
of an
COVID
open
was easy
mind?
for me. It was
Yeah.
so easy for me
Good.
because we were
Yeah.
even my business manager who handles all of
Hmm.
our finances and HR work. I mean, she came on too,
Hmm.
2018, like 2017, 2018 before COVID. And she even said, she's like, my husband's retired now
Hmm.
at a younger age. And
Hmm.
she's like, look, we want to go to Europe and travel, but she's like, I'll still work and get all the books and everything. And I mean, she's the best person I have ever worked with in the finance arena at any
Yeah.
firm I ever worked with. She gets everything done. We get
Amazing.
paid like no one else's business. Like we're on it and everything's fine. And she always worked remotely too. So I think like when COVID hit, obviously it's a scary time, of course, but
Yes.
from
Yes.
a business, like put health aside, like from a business
Yeah.
standpoint, I
Yes.
wasn't like as nuts as all these other people because everyone knew how to
Yes.
work remotely anyways. So
Yes.
that was set up. I didn't have to like set anything up. And
I feel like,
we learned
yes.
Zoom. Like I never did Zoom before. So
Sure.
that was my introduction to we're doing our office meetings and
Yeah.
individual calls, right?
Yeah. I think
So
too, because you have treated people like adults, they have shown up like adults and they know what the
exactly.
expectation is and they know, what the work is that they need to do. And you don't
Right.
necessarily interfere with the ways and means and times and things. I think that does make people feel
Mhm.
respected and cared for and appreciated. And also, I think
Right.
that's rare, unfortunately, in our industry where people understand that sometimes the best person for the role doesn't have the ideal schedule or doesn't have the flexibility to be there in the office all of the time. But glad that you've seen a way around that. And it's something that we lose a lot of women from the workforce and specifically from commercial real estate
Mhm.
because we don't have that flexibility and that open mindedness in terms of the ideal person for this role might not be someone you can physically see in your
Right.
office from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Is that really necessary, or is that kind of a harbinger of the past and something that we can move beyond?
It's a harbinger of the past. And I also think that some people, and look, I'm trying not to be a control freak. And more and more, I had to let go and let go and let go
Yeah,
because my life just keeps getting busier, busier, and busier. And
sure.
and I also too learned a lot, like not just from my parents. Now that is a different age. They would have never done what I'm doing
Sure.
and being flexible. That
Sure.
just wasn't
Yeah.
that time. And I think that's why there was mostly everyone was stay-at-home moms. It was rare any woman worked
Yeah.
because there'd be no way you could do that.
Hmm.
But now even like my husband, he's only like a year older than me. So it's not like
Hmm.
he's younger, he's not really older. We're like the same age. And he owns a really large company, international
Hmm.
company. And he has a ton of women. He has very low turnover. And because he always was like that as well. Like he let people work from home. He's not going to let an engineer work from home, but if they're in sales, they're in
Yeah.
customer service, like he was
Hmm.
always flexible. And he always felt that's why he always had the best help too. And then when COVID
Yeah.
hit, it was funny
Yeah.
how you have to now he has hundreds and hundreds of people working for him, unlike me, but you
Hmm.
have to adapt to what are your people telling you. Like the younger
Yes.
people during COVID, they wanted in the office, the 20
Sure.
somethings, all the
Yeah.
creatives, they wanted to be there. So
Yeah.
he was like, okay, I'm going to go get an office for you downtown and,
Hmm.
and put you guys then all there. Right.
Yeah.
Because then like the older executives, they always wanted to come in the office. They were never going to work at home either during
Yeah.
COVID. But
Yeah.
then they didn't want to be around the younger, so it's like, okay, then we're going to put you here. Like I think sometimes you just have to adapt and the rest of them all want to work at home that can't. And I
Yes.
think again, if you're making money and they're doing their job, I understand. Believe me, I know what a bad employee is. Been there. Okay. I
Yes.
see
Yes.
the
Yeah.
fear. Believe me, I've had people
Yes.
who know how to work the system. I
Sure.
They're out
Yeah.
there. I believe me, and
Yeah.
I never want to encounter them ever, ever, ever again because it
Yes.
makes work. It's that 1 to 2% that makes you hate working and running a
Yes.
company. Okay.
Yes.
But I think through people like you and people can hopefully avoid those bad hires.
Absolutely.
And I think if you just pray to God you're hiring right, you can be flexible with people. But I think there's
Yeah.
just so much old guard control freakness. Like they have to see you. And I mean, you and I both know we've worked in offices where people are there 9 to 5. They're not working. Like
No.
they're absolutely not working.
Yes.
Like walk by their
Yes.
computer, they're not doing anything, or you're begging them to do work for you.
Yeah. 100% agree. And I think too, this is an interesting thing because you and I are at a similar place in our career where we've been around, we've seen a lot of
Mhm.
things. And so we've learned the early parts of our career might have been more focused on how to not be a certain way or do a certain thing, right? And now we're
Mhm.
getting into the groove of who we want to be and how we want to show up as leaders. And one of the
Right.
things that I've noticed a lot about you, and it's funny because I always tell you, I feel like it's been the last 2 years that you have
Mhm.
really been putting yourself out there. In reality, it's
Mhm.
much less time. But talk
Right.
to me about becoming a larger presence on social media and rising above. Obviously, you're someone who's known very well in
Right.
Ohio and kind of
Mhm.
northeastern Ohio and the Great Lakes. But
Mhm.
talk to me about why step into a bigger stage? How are you thinking about this? And what's next on the horizon for you?
Sure. Mhm. And I was like looking and thinking to myself, if you're a real estate manager and you're not, say, from this, say, east of the Mississippi, right? How would
Sure.
you even know who the good broker is, right? Who are
Mm,
who's who? So of
sure.
course, like I know who my direct competitor is here, and I know who is like top notch in other cities, right? From doing a
Hmm.
lot of work outside of the state and hiring and working with other brokers at other firms. And I went to like their websites and then their social
Hmm.
media pages. And I was like, oh my God, like we are doing nothing with social media. And I always stayed away from it because a lot, like shockingly, a lot of people I know are like just like hide and grind. Like, who
Yeah.
cares? If you're making a lot of
Yeah.
money, you don't need to do that. You don't need to waste
Yeah.
time doing that. And a lot of people feel, I think the thing is, a lot of people in big business,
Mhm.
they see that it could not turn out well too, social media,
Sure.
because
Yeah.
you're getting sued. Any attorney can go twist any story off your social media. But I
Hmm.
think when it comes to business and work, you just keep it business like. And I wound up outsourcing that,
Hmm.
and getting a social media manager. Um, and I did it for my company, and then she
Hmm.
gave me a lot of great ideas for myself and what to do, and I followed certain people and just kind of looked at, like, because I am a creative, I'm kind of like, I'm right and left brain, I'm not so
Yeah.
I could switch on and off, and I just started following them and listening, talking to more people who are really into it, of course, like Beth Azar and
Hmm.
other people that are doing a lot of social media, and just watching them and seeing what they're doing, and then just getting great tips from obviously my social media manager what to do. And that's how it just took off, and I followed their advice, and everything just started rolling, and I have gotten accounts from it. I have gotten
Hmm.
business from it. So it's
Yeah.
not, we'll see how it really winds up at the end of the day, because it is time consuming
Hmm.
to do. I'm not handling my business side, but I have
Hmm.
to feed the social media manager, my marketing manager. Like, we talk about, what are we going to give her, right?
Hmm.
To put on. But then I'm posting and doing all my own stuff. Like,
Hmm.
sometimes, like, of course, my marketing person or my social media manager will be doing the graphics. I'm not like a graphic designer, but
Sure.
and the
Yeah.
videos, I don't know how to do all that. But my biggest thing, like, what I really love it, I think it's so much
Hmm.
fun. And what
Hmm.
I like about it is I like learning from other people now that I'm in it, because everyone has a story. Like, my life would have been so much better if social media was around when I first started working in the business, when I first
Yeah.
became a parent, right?
Yeah.
Because you think like you're crazy. I'm the only one going through this, or,
Yes.
is life really this difficult? Where it's not. Once people like you have so many people to reach out with and follow, and just like on X, you could get in groups and everything, and you start meeting so much people. And because I leverage that, then like like I'm going to Globe Street, I'm meeting all these women, I'm going
Yeah.
to the Series Summit. Like, I never even knew about it. I never even knew about the Series Summit. Oh, and
Hmm.
just this year alone, I'm number 48 on LinkedIn. No joke, 4 months after I started on
Amazing.
LinkedIn, out of what,
Yeah.
150 people.
Hmm.
And I got Women of Influence with Serious Summit. I got Women of Influence and Tenant Rep Broker with
With
Globe
Globe
Street
Street. Yeah.
nationally. So it's like, I think what's nice is, like, I've gotten awarded for like just so much hard work that I've done. And I
Yes.
also, it's not just about being awarded, but it's for me to be able to talk and meet with other women and also help other people, because so many people will call me. I realize, like, people may not be liking your stuff. Of course, you have the same people that like your stuff and all that,
Sure.
and
Sure.
some new people that pop up here and there. But I have people who call me, and you just don't realize they're watching you, and they'll be like,
Oh,
oh,
yeah.
blah blah blah, and this and that. And I think I'm at an age right now, in a stage in my life, where my kids are getting bigger, they're in their
Mhm.
teens. I have one kid, my youngest is in middle school, he's in 6th grade, and we're
Mhm.
like the busiest I've ever been. It's way
Mhm.
busier now, and I was warned this, than when they were babies.
Yeah.
And my husband, we just have a really full life. We're constantly traveling and out of the country and going to stuff for his work. And my life is nothing like it was. And nothing like what I even ever thought it would be like. And so I feel like now what I want to give back is to the people who work for me here, because I have really, really
Yes.
amazing talent and
Yes.
people who are loyal or stuck with me, people I've
Hmm.
trained, people I've seen them grow as a people, financially, everything. So obviously I want to
Yeah.
help who's sitting in this office with me, like,
Hmm.
my who's. And I also, and look, the more money we make, the more I can bonus the people I like,
Yeah.
my employees that
Yeah.
work for me, and take care of them. And I want to help other women, and not just
Yes.
other women, but other people
Hmm.
out there who need good advice or help with whether it's real estate, real world stuff. I
Hmm.
want to be able to be an influencer, w-
Hmm.
take my experience instead of hiding it, help people.
Yes. Yes.
Hmm.
Well, I think it's so important, and I think it's such an amazing tool, right? I think a lot of people view social media as a negative, and I think
Hmm.
it's really
For sure.
just a medium. And so if you use it for good, it
Right.
will be a good thing. And if you don't use it for
Hmm.
good, we've all seen what can happen. But I
Right.
do think about this idea of leaving it better than we found it, like
For
leaving this
sure.
industry a better place than we found
Hmm.
it. And I think too about the ability for everyone to have a mentor is not necessarily always there. I do
I never
think
really had
though,
one at work. No
yeah,
one trained
I
me. I mean, like,
which is incredible because I feel like you had so much intensity in the first few years of your business. And I imagine too that things had to be done such a different way than they are done today, that your time was probably completely full of just going to the courthouse, looking things up, pulling plans, pulling zoning, doing things that
yeah,
you don't necessarily even have to do today. So,
right.
yeah, it's just very interesting to think
But
about.
here's something to think about though too, is like when I
Hmm.
started, like I don't have a mentor or training program, right?
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
that's pretty typical in
Sure.
with being a broker. And even if you do have a training program, that's nice, but at the end of the day, it's like you really need to be with a broker learning how to do
Learn by
deals,
doing.
right?
Yes.
Learn by
Yeah.
doing. And
Hmm.
what I think the best advice I could give anyone going into brokerage is you got to get in with a really good firm or
Yes.
team in that company, right?
Hmm.
Because you are just never going to like be able to learn how to do anything because you need to hear them on the phone. That's how I,
Yes.
because I
Yes.
worked with like high producers.
Hmm.
So I watched how they did stuff. I kept asking questions, watching, asking, watching, asking. And that's how I learned. And that's how you're going to learn. And then the thing is, when you're with a really good brokerage house or a team within a,
Hmm.
say, a large national brokerage house, right?
Hmm.
They'll give you their leftovers they don't want. And that's how you're going
Yeah.
to get started. I don't mean that
Yeah.
negatively. It's just that there's
No,
smaller
no.
deals they don't want to work
Hmm.
on, but those smaller deals will feed you and get you through the
Yes.
year and build. Everything's a building block. And I think the thing is in life, like people don't understand, like things are building blocks. You got to have
Hmm.
patience. Nothing's happening
Yes.
overnight. Like people
Yes.
think people are overnight successes. They're really not. There's a
No.
lot of work and things like going behind it. And you just have to have that steady patience level of getting there.
Absolutely.
Hmm.
I don't want to even add anything else onto that because I feel like you said it so clearly. It's such a
Hmm.
great place to end. And I think the only call to action I would say is listening to what Tori just said. If you are a senior person like I am and like she
Hmm.
is, be that mentor that you would have wished that you
Right.
had, and to show
Hmm.
up, whether it's on social media and you're a virtual
Hmm.
mentor to tens of thousands of
Right.
people, like a Beth Azor or a Bob
Hmm.
Knackle, or
Yep.
if it's in your office, be a mentor. What last words of wisdom do you want folks to take away from your story? And what is the lesson maybe that you've learned over the last few decades in commercial real estate?
I would say like words of wisdom is work hard, always do the right thing. You're going to have people that are going to try to tear you down. I left an environment where someone told me they were going to destroy me. Okay. Ignore these emotional basket cases out there and
Yes.
people who, again, think that you have to lie, cheat, and still to get to the top. Like you do the right thing and work hard and you're going to get where you want to get and it's going to manifest for you and your life's going to turn out like better than you ever could have wished and dreamed of, period, is my opinion.
Amen. Amen.
Hmm.
I appreciate it so much, Tori. It was so much fun. And I know there's so many great takeaways that
Yeah.
everyone will have from listening to today's episode of the Spotlight, a Women Speak CRE podcast.
Thank you, Allison.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode of the Spotlight, a Women Speak CRE podcast with our very special guest, Tori Nook. Tori's story is one I think so many of us can relate to, from starting her career and working really hard, working her way through the ranks, eventually becoming an entrepreneur, a mother, a wife, all of the things. Tori has such grit and tenacity and drive in what she does. And she's also learned along the way to delegate, to allow people to support her, to find the right fit for hiring within her organization, and to really expand and grow her business in a way that honors and supports her entire life, not just her work life. So many great lessons here. Go ahead and give Tori a follow on all the social media platforms. She is a great person to watch as someone who has very recently just focused on establishing her social media presence and is seeing great success. Why? Because she has built a very strong career locally and nationally in the retail world, and she has great insights, great ideas, is really got her finger on the pulse of her market and the retail world. So go ahead and give Tori a follow. Thank you so much for listening into today's episode. And if you like what we're doing, please subscribe, like, and share with someone you think could benefit from some inspirational stories of women's careers in commercial real estate. And we'll see you next time on the Spotlight, a Women Speak CRE podcast.